I've had the good fortune of traveling around the world with my table, like one would a boat, gathering coffee farmers together at a common table to collect their stories and document them. Also, as Nassim mentioned, my table has ended up on Interstate 5 medians as a tool to provoke dialogue about use of space and commerce. Many of the country's leading musicians have also been at this table to share songs about eating and drinking. I've had the opportunity to recreate the classic Greek symposium with thought leaders ranging from Gore Vidal to Mary Robinson to Spike Lee. Some of these table-making adventures are going to show up behind me. I'm hoping that they raise more questions than they do answers. At the core of this 15 years of traveling around with the table is a distinct hunch, and that is that the table, the place where we come together to share food, is one of the most important cultural sites in the modern world. And the second part of that hunch is that the common table is in a state of peril. We don't eat together anymore. I don't need statistics to point to the bleak realities in the modern world when it comes to conviviality. The rise of the drive-through, the breakdown of the family dinner, and the prevalence of the solitary meal are all self-evident realities. But arising from this backdrop, there have been two main tenets really been at the core of this work. And one of them is that the world of progressive ideas, essentially the world of TED, is in dire need of civic rituals. If the ideas that we are sharing and hearing today are going to come off this stage and reshape the world, we need to rethink how we convene, how we gather, and I think the table needs to be a central part of that consideration. And the second tenet is that the local food movement, and I've been an active member, and proudly so, for the last decade, in order for that movement to achieve the success that it can, how we can sit together and eat that local food, this esteemed movement will plateau. In order for the food revolution to gain real culture-shifting momentum, we need to put the proverbial horse back in front of the cart. Real progress will elude us if we don't think about new bottles for eating local food. I'm appalled at how little consideration and energy is invested in how we eat together, but also blown away by the work that's being done in small pockets around the country. This is the departure point, the context from which my work rises up. And within this unsteady ground, I've placed a kind of strange flag and decided to call this practice table making. Now, I've already gotten some feedback that's a little bit sloppy or too leaden a term, but I'm hoping with some tenacity I can slip it into low-grade usage. So, table making, working definition, the evocative, powerful, meaningful, or progressive use of the common table. Any action that reinvigorates the common table, i.e. any action that inspires people to eat together. There have been profound uses of the common table throughout history. Here are three. Gertrude Stein and Alice B. Toklas understood the core and quintessential importance of the hearth and table. A modernist revolution found its earliest spark in their dinners and their salons in their Parisian apartment. The New York Times called the Stein Salon the first ever museum of modern art. Every year, millions of members of the Jewish faith gather together at the Seder table. They literally consume their history. Gratitude for ancestors is renewed and a new year opens up. It is a remarkable ritual. The Seder got new wings this year. In 2010, Obama hosted the first ever White House Seder. And I quote Eric Lesser, White House staffer, "Possibly the first time in history that gefilte fish has been served on White House china." Now, the White House Seder found its inspiration in a dark basement. In 2008, Obama was on the campaign trail, and staffer Eric Lesser and two others had gathered in a dark basement to put an ad hoc Seder together. Obama happened upon them, was intrigued, and joined the dinner. Number three, Katharine Graham, hailed as the most powerful woman in publishing. At a famous dinner in the 70s, she decided to break a pretty old tradition. And, this is a decade after she'd been running the Post and had already brought it through Watergate. She was at a dinner party and she said to Joe Alsop, "I think I'd rather go home than not join the men for whiskey and cigars and the postprandial discussion. And so he invited her to stay, and soon thereafter, she was not only one of the most desired table companions, but also postprandial companions. So we have Katharine Graham, Obama, and Gertrude Stein all activating the table in powerful ways. More commonplace examples definitely deserve mentioning. Thanksgiving feast, the communion, family meal, and what I think is the most important historic use of the table, and I call it the harvest feast. This is a dinner that comes together when your neighbor decides to kill a large animal. I know it happens all the time to you. So let's call that large animal a pig. Pigs are really big. You cannot eat a pig in one sitting with your family, or even several. So historically, the neighbor would pick up the phone and invite you to come eat pig. So in that really simple telephone call, a brilliant interaction and complex exchange happens of gift culture. And to back up a second, I'm going to talk about that harvest feast that I was mentioning where we were all killing animals and calling our neighbors. So the modern urban harvest feast, we call that the dinner party. What is different between the dinner party and making a reservation at a local restaurant? It's the future. The dinner party implies the future. Marcel Mauss summed it up by calling it the obligation to return. Now, you might not be roasting a whole pig in return at that dinner party, but a basic obligation to return the cultural exchange is established. Now, it can be argued that this commonplace dinner party that many of us have taken part in carries with it the root of all civil society, the world of giving. Pretty heavy for offering up a little bit of stew. Now, the other thing the basic dinner party has in its favor is the hearth, a center point. It's what Iliada calls the axis mundi. It contains an identity. The hearth contains an identity of an individual, a family. There's very little risk, very little vulnerability, and perhaps equally little reward in making a reservation at a restaurant. But bringing someone into your home and cooking for them is scary. It's human. I think it's gorgeous. Secretary of State Clinton, hearths, I quote, whatever they look like and wherever we gather around them, where we tell our stories and pass down our values, bind families together. Now, this was stated last month at the Clinton Global Initiative. And I don't mean, going back to the restaurant, to beat up on the restaurant. I just think that we need more models, many models. And not just the type of dinner parties our parents had, but evocative, compelling new reasons to eat together. I might also submit that the fear for cooking for people, the fear of entertaining, is likely encroaching on our #1 fear in America, that of public speaking. Just a submission. Before we wrap up, I urge you to consider the work of my underdiscovered colleagues. Open Restaurant in the Bay Area, Outstanding in the Field, Kurtwood Farms, Sunday Suppers out on Vashon, Maverick Farms, this is a farm that is using communal meals and gathering people to bring attention to the endangered farming community in North Carolina, and doing a remarkable job expanding that dialogue. So I will have successfully spent my time on this stage if you go home today and cast a different kind of glance at that dinner table. And also, if there's 2 questions that flit around your brain and inspire action. 1, how can we expect to revolutionize our food system without a deep investment in how we share the food from that system? And how can we expect to create a progressive state without meaningful civic ritual? Will you even remember the ideas shared here today? I assert that a conversation you're about to have at lunch is going to be maybe more memorable than anything I said in the last 9 minutes. But the remarkable thing about food is when it's shared intimately, it can turn something ethereal into something palpable, a reality. So I know I'm out of my time, but you have received a little invitation, and lunch is next, so I can go a second longer. Not quite yet. You have received that invitation. Open it up. And what this invitation is not for me to cook you dinner. but actually for you to cook dinner or to bring people together, and I want to know what happens at those dinners. And I want you to tell me about it on our little Facebook page, because I think a national movement can happen with people eating together. And I think I can give table making a bit of mileage. So thank you for listening.